You're listening to the Religion Unplugged podcast. I'm Matthew Peterson, and today we're speaking with historian and scholar Dr. Hung Tak Wai about his recent book, Redefining Heresy and Tolerance, Governance of Muslims and Christians in the Qing Empire before 1864. Tak Wai, thanks so much for being here with me today.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure.
Yeah, so I think as we get started, I think what would be helpful to understand is exactly when and how did Christianity and Islam enter the Qing Empire, enter the region now known as China. Uh,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, so it's actually a rather long history. Islam came first around the 7th and 8th century, back in the Tang Dynasty, something like the medieval Europe, by the time of the medieval Europe, and then Christianity come a little bit later, but it wasn't the Catholic Church. The first church arrived at China was the Church of the East. So I think some of them still remain in Asia and also based in Syria mainly in nowadays. So the Church of the East are the so-called Nestorians, or some might call them, arrived. But eventually they were the minorities. Christians were always the minority, not until the age of like 15th or 17th century when the Catholic Europeans arrived at East Asia. So by that time, they means something else. They mean wealth. They means chances and opportunities of commercial activities, but also threat, a military threat. Since the China, like the Chinese, the main empire, the one before the Qing dynasty, they well known the fact that places like Malacca or Manila being colonized. So there's a information network among the Asian countries. So they view these people as threat, naturally. And but for Islam, it had always been there, but it's still a minority, but the population is larger. So by the time of the Qing dynasty, we are talking about around the 18th century. Both religions had their role in the empire. Some of them serve in the bureaucracy. Some of them even serve in the court, like the Jesuit priests served many of the Qing and the Ming and Qing emperors.
hmm. Okay, cool. Yeah, and it seems like during this period, Confucianism is kind of the dominant worldview of most people. I'd like to know, in general, kind of, in a vacuum, how compatible are Confucian beliefs with Islamic or Christian ones?
Well, I was saying that the thing is more complicated after the 20th century. So before the let's just talk about before the 20th century first. Before the 20th century, China was during an imperial era, so called it, and basically for more than 1,000 years, the whole selection process of bureaucracy is based on the knowledge of Confucian texts. So people take examinations, and when they pass these examinations, they gain the power from the empire. And at the same time, there are a lot of rituals about sacrifices to heavens, to earth, another set of deities in the Chinese religions. Many of the Buddhist and the Taoist beliefs and deities were accepted. It's more like a pantheon of Chinese religion. So it's something before the 20th century, so I would say very compatible. But after the 20th century, since there is no emperor and the coming of the secular Western thought, people in China, particularly those elites who want to modernize the country, they kind of rewritten the history or rewritten the essence of Confucianism. So they make it more about philosophy, more about compatibility with like democracy or science. Pretty much what you will see in the 20th century Hinduism movement. A lot of the intellectual would say it's not a religion, it's a way of life, it's a philosophy. So and nowadays you might see this as more like a way of life if you ask a lot of the contemporary Chinese scholars.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, Something that I found really striking about the book is in chapter 4, you talk about how there was a time when it was actually Muslims on the Qing Empire side fighting Muslims on the other side, who were kind of enemies of the state. Um, how did that situation come to be? How did you ever get Muslims who were more loyal to their political brothers than their faith brothers?
Okay, so I think when we can compare it with the European history, like in at the same time in the Ottoman Empire, there are a lot of Christian states fighting for the Ottoman sultans, and also there are a lot of political alliance between the Arab countries with the United Kingdom or with British and also with France against the Ottoman Empire during the uprising. So political the political implication of being a Muslim seems not to be that much important, maybe before 1880s at least. So there was a book I actually got inspired a lot called The Idea of a Muslim World. I'm not sure if you have heard of it. I think it's published in America. And the book is to actually talk about when asked the question, when did the concept of Ummah or the concept of being a Muslim is politically significant. So when did it start to people ask the question, oh, come on, you have shared the same religion. Why do you fight against Islam? It's actually the usual case in a lot of places in the world, even for Christianity, for Islam, and also, of course, for people of the Chinese religions. So I would say it's rather common, particularly in the nomadic settings, that during the Mongol eras, and you actually saw a lot of cases like that.
And is there any historical documentation kind of mourning that? Like, were there people who actively
Of course,
understood
people
yeah.
who lost the war would definitely mourn that. Why
Right.
did you fight
Well,
against me?
yeah.
We believe in the same God.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't be. I wouldn't say that kind of mourning would be a majority of the voices. People kind of accepted it.
Yeah. Interesting. In chapter 5, you mentioned that the government at times collaborated with Christianity, which they weren't fully endorsing, but in order to eliminate more harmful heresies. What were some of these heresies that were viewed as more harmful? What was not tolerated as much as Christianity or Islam?
Well, I would say for the heresy with a knife or with a sword and a gun, they are more harmful. For those who hold the Bible and do not possess any weapons, they are less harmful. The criteria is actually quite clear, and I would say the concept of heresy. In the Chinese culture or in the Confucianism culture is actually was actually undergoing a period of transformation during the era we are talking about, around the early 18th century to the early 19th century. So during this time, you have to accept that your empire is governed by the Manchurian nomads who were the alliance with the Mongols and the Mongols, who were the Tibetan believers of the Tibetan Buddhism. And they also employed those Christians, missionaries to work for them in the court. And there are also Muslims who serve in the same bureaucracy with you. The Muslim scholars, they took the same Confucianism classic texts examinations like you do, and they get a higher mark and they got into the bureaucracy. So these people exist just next to you. You have to accept it. So and you can't just complain about this for more than 100 years because in the earlier part of the book is actually mentioned as some kind of debates between the emperor and the bureaucrats. The Confucian bureaucrats were quite frustrated with the fact that uh, uh, the whole system is built on the concept of orthodoxy and heresy according to the Chinese religion. But now you accept that these people who worship another god and they have another way of living. So, for example, that's one example that that might not got much attention from your background is the concept of a calendar. So, the emperor, the Chinese emperor during the imperial era they have they monopolize the rights to produce an Orthodox calendar, and it is a political symbol for any Chinese rebels for a very long time that if you create your own calendar, it means that you want to create a new dynasty because you have the communication with the heaven. Let's just say it. But we all understand that the Muslims have their own calendar, and
Mm.
you have to accept it. When having an Islamic calendar or in Imperial China, the political significance and the political implication in the eyes of the Confucian bureaucrats was very shocking. How can we accept it? And this guy is actually my colleague.
Mm.
He's not even someone who a rioter. Let's say. So this created a big challenge for Confucianism as a concept or as a religion. And the whole book is actually about, in the Christian theological terms, we say is a theology of religions. So they have to change it. You have to remake your theology of religions because you encountered with more people, and you have to reshape your own worldview to fit in the realities.
Yeah, can you talk more about the theology of religions? What was the development of that? What was the
So,
progression?
okay. The theology of religion is about how one religion view another religion. So, in a more early stages, Confucianism is actually very simple. We have a not we actually they have a code of living, and the code of living is developed from the very classical Chinese texts before Confucius. So the whole thing got inherited, interpreted, and become it's not a very precise comparison, but you can think of the Sharia law of or the Christendom Europe. That the whole legal system and lots of moral values is based on this kind of taxes. So the interpretation of taxes is very important. You draw some lines of right and wrongs and things from this kind of things. So in the Confucianism, they accepted that okay, they're the group of elite. They possess the knowledge of these kind of things, so they can have the political power to represent the emperor to bring civilization to people who haven't got such let's say wisdom. So the other peoples are supposed to learn from the Confucian scholars, and eventually everyone will become a gentleman. The utopia or in the Confucianism world is that everyone got enlightened. So in this theology of religions, you can say that other religions are tolerant. You are accepted to coexist with us. You can live in the empire. In most cases there would be no persecution unless first you get too wealthy, or second you got your population got too large. That becomes a political threat. But other than that, in most cases, for example, in more than 500 years, a lot of the Chinese mosque they will have a wooden tablet written 王帝万岁万万岁, something like Long Live the King in the entrance of the mosque. So as long as you have this symbol of political loyalty to the empire, then we don't really care what happened inside your mosque. You can
Mm.
worship whatever you like. So, but in the case during the Ming and Qing dynasty, more like the early modern era, these Confucian bureaucrats realized that these people are not just existing. They they received the Confucian education, they took the examination, but they're still Muslim, so the whole thing just doesn't add up. You didn't convert to us, and after all the education, you are still remain there. So actually, they didn't really ask for full persecution of these people. What they asked for the emperor is that if they want to remain a Muslim, it's all right, but they shouldn't take the examination. They shouldn't share the political power. So it's a problem of who can serve in the imperial bureaucracy. If you compare the point of view with the history of Great Britain, for example, before the Catholic emancipation, actually even the Catholic Christians couldn't hold an office in the British government. and that's actually in the similar period of time. So I was saying that their understanding of a heresy is quite related to the sharing of political power. These people are just not part of us.
Mm.
So but the emperor of the Qing dynasty is quite different. The empire is huge, and the population is so diverse that you can't just ask me to take these people away. There's no way of doing so. So you have to accept it.
Mm.
And after that, such acceptance, you eventually develop different ideas of why are we accepting them? You can't tell yourself every morning that we accept it because there is a Manchu ruler over our head and we sacrificed all our moral values. You can't nobody could like, live with that for a century. So within the century, the Confucians developed some kinds of ideas like also one of the cases I raised in the book, a guy called Wei Yuan. Wei Yuan developed a concept like there are different kind of people. Some are less blessed by the heaven, and they're more simple. So they have to have another kind of religion. And Confucianism or Chinese religions are just too complicated for them.
Mm.
And it's something like they're born with some uh, defects. Of course, this would be very horrible things to say in nowadays, but uh, we have to understand that this is what keeps the whole coexisting circumstances hold in the by the time of the early 19th century.
Mm. So, in other words, these other religions, they're allowed to live and conduct business and fight in wars, but they don't have access to joining the government, affecting change in the
They
in.
want they wish this had to happen, but eventually everyone got the power. But eventually, everyone got entered to the bureaucracy because they just can't stop it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Can you talk about the civil service examination system a little bit more? Kind of what was that? How did that work? How did it affect?
Well, that's would be it. It's actually a very long history. The earliest development, the starting point is around the time of the Roman Empire, is during the Han Dynasty, around the second century BC. By the time the bureaucracy size was small, so it's by recommendation the local officials, the governors of those kinds of things like governors are not very precise, but just keep it simple first. So the governors of the local governments would like recommend 2 or 3 people every year for the central government, and then send these people to central government to be like a trainee, and they would learn about how the bureaucracy work, and then eventually become part of the official. So when the number of these candidates become too high, so they set up schools for them, and eventually they set up examinations. Uh, which one of you are better? We have to decide it, and then eventually they opened possibility, the opportunity of taking such examination to everyone in the empire around 7th and 8th century. So by that time, around the medieval period of the European history, everyone, of course, only the male, and some of the so-called outcasts are excluded, like war criminals or the offsprings of foreigners. They couldn't take the examination, but whoever who can take the examinations would learn about around 13th Confucian's classics, and then you have to use it to create poetry, literature pieces, and also in later times, around after the 12th century, you have to answer questions about more down to earth things like how will you collect taxes when I send you to govern a place. So did all these kind of things from morality to each day's tax collection stuff, you have to learn about it and took an examination. By the time this book is talking about, the whole thing is very sophisticated. Every 4 years there will be a lowest grade examination for everyone, and then you have to take step to step around four after 4 examinations, which would take around 10 to 20 years. If you're lucky, maybe you pass every examination by one go, it would be around 10 years, and then you will become a part of the bureaucracy. So this is actually the way that someone of lower social status to climb up in the imperial setting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Talk why we've covered, I think, most of the things I wanted to talk about, but I do have one more thing I want to ask you,
Yeah.
um, which is just how has the Qing dynasty's relationship to Islam and Christianity and their level of tolerance, the level of access people had, how has that legacy affected modern China's relationship with religion?
Uh, I would say the mentality is actually quite similar.
Hmm.
But the Qing dynasty is less capable of doing micromanagement.
Mm,
And you see, when you can do micromanagement with all those WeChat and smartphones and internet censorship,
mm,
if you can actualize what people wish to do in the 18th century, it would be very horrible.
mm. Yeah. And what might that look like practically if you don't mind?
Look at today's Xinjiang or those Christian churches. Like, of course, the Confucian scholars would like to have the same. Maybe some of them, more radical one, would like to have the same kind of censorship for all these people who held their own calendar, who had their own sacred texts. So, but they don't have the means to censor everything. You don't even have the way to read their texts. But compared with today's all those publications in China nowadays have to go through the government's censorship first, and everything written and everything on internet would be censored. So is the utopia that these people might be dream of.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. Well, Tak Wai, thank you so much. His book is Redefining Heresy and Tolerance by Hung Tak Wai. We so appreciate having you on, and it was very interesting, different sort of thing than we normally talk about. We haven't covered a lot of uh, Chinese history of religion, and so I really appreciate having you on and hearing about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful rest of your day.